What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. We're back doing another preview video for round 5 is actually starting this weekend. We are flying through the World Cup round 5 just around the corner. This one is going to be for New Zealand versus Uruguay. The first game getting us kicked off on Thursday evening. It's kind of nice to not have a Wednesday game. The Wednesday games have been throwing me off a little bit. We're going to have a run through the team sheets that have been announced for both sides, give some thoughts on the teams, how we think the game might go, and of course, give that all-important score prediction. If you enjoy the style of video, make sure to hit that like button. If you want to keep up to date with all the rest of the rugby content across the World Cup, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It's free, it's easy, takes 2 seconds to do. Now, New Zealand versus Uruguay. New Zealand last week, of course, played Italy in an extremely dominant game. 74 points by the end of it, got 96 racked up on the scoreboard. A lot of people going into that one were talking about how this might be one Italy actually target. I thought it would be a New Zealand win. I thought New Zealand would get the bonus point, and I thought they would win comfortably. I did not see them getting all the way out to a 70-point margin win over Italy, but their performance looked absolutely phenomenal last week. A little bit worried maybe about whether they've actually been tested that much across the World Cup pools. Of course, they had that tough game against France in the opening week, but since then they've been able to build on some sort of the tier 2 games, and Italy didn't put up that much of a fight against them last week. So going on to the quarterfinals and stuff, at the minute as they stand, it looks like they might be going on to play Ireland. That is going to be a tough amount to sort of turn around in terms of your opponent. So going into this week, I can imagine New Zealand maybe wanting to test a few things out and make sure they just get those clinical areas right, avoid as many penalties as possible, make sure the handling issues are absolutely settled, and by looking at the team, also resting some key players, because Ireland will be a bit of a formidable force. So taking a look at the starting front row then, Offa Tuangafasi, Cody Taylor and Tyrell Lomax. So this is pretty much the same as we got to see last week. Nepo Laulala was actually playing last week and got one of the top props of the whole round, if you're paying attention to the fantasy and whatnot. Did extremely well. Cody Taylor doing well at hooker, but actually Dane Coles was the big one to talk about last week in terms of your hookers going on for New Zealand. Came on in that second half, only on the field for about 20-25 minutes, got himself 2 tries, looked like he's having a great time as soon as he came out on the field. So Cody Taylor probably want to get over for some driving maul tries in this one, try and stamp down a bit of authority in terms of the physicality in this game. In the lock department, Sam Whitelock goes in alongside of Tupou Vai. This is a fun little combination I'm looking forward to. Tupou Vai really hasn't had a great deal of game time as of yet across the World Cup, but someone I am looking forward to see. Again, Brodie Retallick and Scott Barrett last week playing very well. Probably a good call here to make sure they are well rested. Of course, Scott Barrett's on the bench, but you know what I mean. Like, don't give them the full 80 minutes. Avoid as many injuries as possible. Sam Whitelock for this one, I believe, is going on for his 149th cap, I believe, for this one. So we're absolutely rocketing up in terms of the amount of caps. And then in that back row, Shannon Frizzell goes in alongside of Sam Cane in the open side, and Luke Jacobson goes in the number 8 shirt. Now, Shannon Frizzell looking impressive last week, again, as impressive as he did in the Rugby Championship. So glad to see his name still in there. Sam Cane comes back after picking up his injury quite early on. Will be coming in as the captain for this team, and Luke Jacobson in there in that 8 shirt over Ardie Savea. Maybe some people would want to see Ardie Savea in there, but again, resting those key pivotal players in games like this, I think is the right move before they go on to play a team like Ireland or Scotland or South Africa, who ends up topping that chart over in Group B. In the halfback partnership, Cam Roigard goes in alongside of Richie Mwanga. Aaron Smith having a bit of a field day last week as well against Italy from that scrum half position, playing a game I feel like I haven't seen him play in quite a while with how many tries he was going over for. Cam Roigard, though, a very exciting player. He's another one of those scrum halves that will look to go himself. He's also got a great deal of pace on him. If Uruguay led him through, we saw what happened with Arata for Uruguay scoring last week against Namibia. He'll need to keep a keen eye on someone like Cam Roigard, because it could be a battle of the scrum halves in this one. In the centre partnership then, Geordie Barrett goes in alongside Anton Linnett-Brown. So Rico Ioane being rested for this game. Geordie Barrett getting another shot at this one. Of course, came back from his injury, thought he had a great game as well. Last week just fit straight back into that inside centre position. So they've given him the start again again here. Probably get those minutes in before you get into the rest of the tournament. And then finally, in the back three, Leicester, Fainga, Anuku goes in alongside Will Jordan, and Damien McKenzie sliding to fullback this week. Another one who came on from the bench last week, made a big impact into that game, got himself over the scoreboard as well. Starting at fullback over Beauden Barrett, who was a bit quiet last week. I've actually been kind of impressed by Beauden Barrett over the last few weeks in terms of his fullback game. Last week against Italy, didn't really feel like he was doing much. Just sitting back, holding that fullback position, just keeping the kicks coming, but not really engaging that much, not pushing up into the attacker line like we've seen before. So I kind of like this. I kind of like switching up, see how Damien McKenzie does that fullback position. Just gives them a few more options to test out as you go on in the tournament. Not going to lie, a little bit surprised to see Will Jordan start in this one. I still, for me, I would be picking Mark Talea and Will Jordan as the starting wingers. Again, injury concerns maybe on that wing. Maybe you'd want to look at someone like Caleb Clark to have started this game, and maybe have someone like Will Jordan on the bench to have covered winger and fullback. But I think if you're a New Zealand fan, you have got your fingers crossed that you don't have too many key injuries to some of these lads. And then quickly in terms of the substitutions, then Taukiaho goes in alongside of Tamaiti Williams and Fletcher Newell. And if Dane Coles is the representation of what we can expect from a New Zealand bench coming on in the hooker, Taukiaho will absolutely be up for meeting that. The rest of the replacement forwards alongside then Scott Barrett and Ethan Blackadder to come onto the field. I feel like I haven't said Ethan Blackadder for a little while in this New Zealand team as well. So it'll be nice seeing him. And then in the replacement backs, Finlay Christie, Beauden Barrett and Caleb Clark. So Beauden Barrett's decent coverage now. The way that he's been used, of course, he's either going to come on at 10 or at fullback. You've also got Geordie Barrett on there who could also play 10 or fullback if you really needed him to. Damien McKenzie's 10 fullback. But both Geordie and Damien also have experience on playing on the wing as well. Caleb Clark's going to come on at your wing. I wonder if they would ever test Caleb Clark at centre. In terms of just sheer size of him, you could probably throw him on at centre if you really wanted to, and just use him like a crash ball 12. He's a big enough unit, but I don't know if I've ever actually seen that going on. But it's a solid looking bench for New Zealand as well. They're not taking this game too lightly, even if you think this is maybe more in line with a B team New Zealand. This is still a hell of a B team, right? There's a lot of very, very experienced and talented players in this side. So Uruguay will have to keep a bit of an eye out for this one. Talking of who then, let's move on to talk about Uruguay, who last week played Namibia in, a trickier game for them. I really expected Uruguay to absolutely smash that game. And a lot of issues for them, just sort of generally around the park, handling errors creeping in for them. A weird, desperate need to constantly play wide by all costs, sometimes causing them a lot of issues. We saw that early try for Namibia coming in off a bit of a rubbish pass going from, I think it was Echeverry through the pass. It just sort of bobbled along the ground, picked up by Namibia and just run the length of the field. And there was so many different handling errors, them forcing the ball to go out wide. The substitutions that actually came on for Uruguay last week felt like they calmed the game down, and that's where we got to see them seal out that game. In terms of the team then, Uruguay is still one of the teams that I've tried to learn as much as I can across the World Cup, but a couple of players that are really standing out for me. Ardao in the blind side flank position is an absolute beast. I haven't checked the stats for number of turnovers, each individual player stats wise, but he's got to be up there. He is just every tackle he goes into, he's looking for that jackal constantly. The amount of turnovers he is getting in this Uruguay team, up against some tough competitors as well, is really nice to see. In that halfback partnership again, Arata goes back in alongside of Echeverry. Arata last week had a fantastic try, running out from the a little gap in the defensive line, took it himself and just ran the length of the field. Superb work by him. Echeverry was a bit quieter last week, not what I was expecting. I expected him to do a bit more of a running fly half job against Namibia, get himself on that attacking line as well. Again, just sort of used a bit more like a distributor last week, getting his kicks over, getting those points, which is what you want to be seeing. But I thought I would have maybe liked to have seen a little bit more from him. In terms of the rest of the players, then Freitas will still be retaining on that left wing, who is one of the ones to watch out for in this Uruguay team as well. I've been enjoying watching Uruguay, even if they're not a team that I know the most about. I've really enjoyed getting to sit down and see how competitive they have been against teams like France, and then going up against some of the other teams, really trying to stamp down that they want to be playing in these big competitions against these bigger teams. I personally have been really, really enjoying seeing a lot more from them. In terms of this game then, how do we see this one going on? Well, New Zealand last week for me really stamped down an Italian team I thought were going to give them a good game. Uruguay had quite a few issues against Namibia, who again, New Zealand ran over. Uruguay turned up against France and gave them a real good game. New Zealand, again, have put on more in line with a bit more of a B team than what we saw last week versus Italy, but I still think there's enough talent in that New Zealand team to actually take this one kind of convincing. I think they might put one of the best scores on Uruguay than what we've seen in the rest of Pool A so far. I think the physicality might be a little bit too much for them. We've seen it in other games where Uruguay begin to fall off from the physical battle. Italy sort of showed it. You know, they were down against Uruguay at halftime, came out in that second half, backed their own physicality, backed their own set piece, and slowly we saw those errors begin to creep in. I think New Zealand are going to be up for a solid one in this one. I'm going to say a New Zealand win. Amazing. I'm going to say not as much as what we got to see against Italy, which sounds kind of wild because I would rate Italy higher than Uruguay. I'm still going to say New Zealand to win this one. I'm going to go for 45. That's going to be my prediction, guys. Of course, make sure you drop down in the comment section your thoughts on the teams, as well as your own score predictions. And of course, make sure you're getting them all up on Super Brew. We've got a little bit more time this week, which is nice. We haven't got that first game till Thursday, so we've got a whole nother day. Of course, there'll be a bunch more preview videos coming out on the channel over today, tomorrow, and Friday, as well as some reviews. There's a really big weekend of rugby, this one, and I'm really looking forward to getting in and doing some more videos on it. I hope you've all enjoyed this one today, guys. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.